Hey everyone, CJ here. Just to let you know, this is the final episode of the Open the World map series. And for the finale, we are going to investigate China's tabletop RPG scene and see if 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons will ever become popular in China. Give the video a thumbs up and share it to show your support for growing the hobby. I know some of you are surprised that there is even a tabletop RPG scene in China, but it does exist, and I went to the largest and most well-known Chinese tabletop RPG forum, Goddess Fantasy, to ask the forumites to answer some of my burning questions. To bring a human face to the inquiry, Tian, a Chinese dungeon master that's currently living in Canada, has agreed to speak to me. The first thing I had discovered was that an official translation of Dungeons & Dragons Edition 3.5 in simplified Chinese exists. In terms of popularity for D20 games, Edition 3.5 is still on top, followed by Pathfinder, then 5th edition. However, the majority agrees that Call of Cthulhu reigns above all others, due to it being popularized by translated Japanese Call of Cthulhu play sessions on Nico Nico Doga, a Japanese web video hosting site. Later on, Chinese also started creating their very own local version on Bilibili, China's most popular video hosting site, which coincidentally is also heavily inspired by Nico Nico Doga. But the forumites have pointed out that most players don't realize that they are playing a truncated basic role-playing system, instead of the proper Call of Cthulhu rules, citing that games with simpler rules tend to be more popular among new players. Seeing that the rise of Call of Cthulhu is relatively recent, so I wondered if it is possible for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons to follow in its footsteps and rise as rapidly as it does in other countries.
In China, like the D&D community is highly focused on 3.5, or most of the time we call it 3R, which is like revised, right? And there is like a weird thing happening between like the 5e player and 3.5 players in China. A lot of them seems to think that 5e is too simple. 3.5 is an edition that has official Chinese, right? But 5th edition is different. 5th edition is purely English. So there is pretty much no good way to get into 5th edition as a Chinese, unless you have fluent English and you have like access to buy actual books for 5th edition.
Seeing that Japanese anime and manga are tremendously popular in China, and especially on Bilibili, I asked whether remarketing D&D in manga or anime style would appeal to them.
I would say maybe yes, but like I think no, because a lot of people who play D&D in China tend to like more about like Western style, so that's kind of the reason why they play D&D.
Tian told me that the Chinese exclusive Magic the Gathering deck, which featured Chinese themes and art, are well received in China.
I think like the artists for Magic the Gathering, there are a few Chinese artists. So people will definitely love to see how Chinese style art in Magic the Gathering.
So I asked him if Wizards of the Coast released a wuxia setting, would it make D&D more popular in China?
I would say yes, because if you go to like Chinese D&D forum, you can often see homebrew for wuxia class. So I would say it definitely will interest them if you did a good job on it, meaning that it is reasonable and you have done a lot of background research for wuxia and kung fu.
So you have no issue with people in the West creating Chinese themed content?
For example, Chinese love Kung Fu Panda, right? And also Chinese players love World of Warcraft. And in World of Warcraft, there is Mists of Pandaria, this expansion. And Chinese people, on a lot of forums, they consider it is one of the best World of Warcraft expansion.
He also expressed that Chinese players do not go into D&D expecting Chinese themed contents.
A lot of Chinese D&D players love Western fantasy. That's why they play D&D. So they come to my table, expecting me to offer them, contents about actual Western fantasy, and then I suddenly take out something super, Chinese. They may enjoy it at the table, but like on the next session, they will say, maybe we should switch back.
What do you think of Hollywood putting in extra scenes in movies to cater for the Chinese market?
I personally think maybe for a lot of stories, the Chinese element isn't really necessary. It is something you can get rid of, because in a movie, every scene should be important and should have like certain meanings in it.
Thinking that this was a long shot, I asked if there is a Chinese created tabletop RPG.
There are many Chinese-made TRPGs, and most of them aren't that successful, to be honest.
Some of the more popular Chinese tabletop RPGs are Infinite Horror and Novoland. Infinite Horror is based on a web novel of the same name. Novoland is a massive setting spanning over 30 novels written by 7 authors. They were inspired by Lord of the Rings to create a multi-racial universe that's populated by fantasy creatures such as giants, winged tribes, dwarves, merfolk, and spirits. Which is unique, because in wuxia and xianxia genre, races and cultures were limited to human variations and different types of gods and demons. The setting became very popular and spawned various TV series and movies. But unfortunately, creative differences delayed the creation of the tabletop RPG itself, and the final product isn't as good as they've expected.
We all think, the settings are great, but it's just like almost exactly same game as Dungeons and Dragons. Why would I switch to like this one?
Next, I asked him about his experience playing D&D in China. Do Chinese gamers prefer to play online or in person?
It's hard to find a place to play in person. And as I said, Chinese TRPG community is small. So a lot of the players are scattered in different cities, different places. It's nearly impossible for them to come together in one place and to play the game.
I have a few questions from my patrons on Patreon that I'm going to ask. What would other Chinese think if they see you play in public?
I can definitely see they will be curious about what you're doing, but I wouldn't say people will do anything about it or will think you guys as weird people.
He also told me that in public places such as parks, seemingly weird group activities such as the dancing grannies tend to be overlooked. Here is another patron question. How easy is it to find other D&D accessories such as polyhedral dice?
I would say pretty easy. And especially in China, we have the one website similar to Amazon. It's called Taobao. If you order it online, easy. But if you want to buy it in real life, hard. In China, when you go to a board game shop, there is pretty much no chance you will see TRPG related content.
Have you ever changed anything in your game to suit your players' culture and experience?
I see a lot of the Western D&D community, when the DMs doing different races, they like to use maybe different accents. But in Chinese, if you use different Chinese accents, it just sounds super weird. It just sounds like your character are not even from a Western fantasy story. It makes it look like your grandpa for some reasons.
He also told me that it is impossible to use the different Chinese dialects, such as Cantonese, because while both Cantonese and Mandarin dialects of Chinese may use the same written characters, the spoken language is nearly incomprehensible. So he had to rely on tone changes and whatever tricks he can come up with. What other challenges Chinese gamers face?
In China, when you reach certain age, people expect you to stop playing games. Even right now, when you reach certain age, especially maybe your parents, sometimes if you are married, your partner will expect you to stop playing games. So I can definitely see how that become one of the reasons why people stop playing Dungeons and Dragons.
So what are the challenges you face trying to get new players?
A lot of time, Chinese players tend to be interested in games that can help you socialize. What I mean by socialize is they would like to play games that's more can help you, like give you a topic for your friends and colleagues. Later, there isn't like much to talk about for a lot of for them, so they might think it's not a good time investment.
The scarcity of time, long school and study hours, family commitments, competition for mind space with mobile games, and the pressure to conform to their peers are important parts of their consideration. Then I ask him whether it is worth implementing the Adventurers League organized play format and conventions.
And I can definitely see how that can be a success, because for board game in China, we have DiceCon, which is a convention for board games. Even though it's DiceCon, there isn't really a tabletop RPG related content in there, but like a lot of people participated in DiceCon. Yes, if you like put like the convention at the right time, maybe in summer vacation, winter vacation, when people actually have chance of participating in it.
What if there is a group of celebrities who come together to play Dungeons and Dragons, like Critical Role? Would it make D&D more popular?
I can definitely see if like a famous Chinese celebrity started to play tabletop RPG can maybe make the community a lot more bigger.
He also told me that the mystery room craze in China was started by a popular TV show, so star power and publicity can certainly help. Moving on to more sensitive questions, I asked him if Dungeons and Dragons will face any censorship from the Chinese government if it becomes popular.
I wouldn't say there is any, but like if like the TRPG community got like a lot more bigger than how it is right now, I can definitely see maybe they need to like change like the wording for some of the vocabularies in China, especially in D&D, because for example, in World of Warcraft we have rogue, right? Rogue in Chinese, rogue is exactly the same word as thief. And for the translation of rogue, we couldn't just translate it into rogue or thief. We have to translate it into stealther, literally just people who stealth. So, which I can definitely see, you need to like change the wording a bit, but it has to be like a community that is super big to attract government attention. So I wouldn't say it's something we need to worry about, and especially there isn't any official publications of Dungeons and Dragons, especially 5th edition. So I definitely couldn't see why we need to change anything.
As some of you who follows gaming news may already know, China has a strange and inconsistent rule regarding the depiction of gore and the supernatural. It was said by some media outlet that skeletons were censored in China, but the fact is that depictions of skeletons still exist in Chinese games. But to speed up the evaluation process by the censorship board, some publishers decided to self-censor. This problem is also compounded by the fact that China does not have an age-based media rating system. PG, M or R-rated, none of those exist. So all media need to be suitable for citizens of all ages, which is an issue because it also leads to children being able to watch violent movies that would be considered to be too mature for them in other countries. Alright, now let's ask Tian what is his secret sauce for dungeon mastering.
Try to always be flexible on what they do and try to, stop keeping them on this railroad that just go on. So when they ask you something, no matter it's in game or outside of the game, try to always say yes. If you can't say, then try to say no, but we can do this.
What messages do you want to deliver to Chinese tabletop RPG players?
For those Chinese players who haven't started playing Dungeons and Dragons, who are willing to start, seriously don't miss out this game. Even though at the beginning it might be hard, and for almost every Chinese TRPG players it is hard, but once you get into this community, it's definitely something worth the effort.
Encouraging words indeed. Before I end the video, I would like to share some of my observations. Various sources have told me that many Chinese seems to like playing games with lighter rules due to the limited amount of commitment they can spare for this new hobby. While I truly deeply appreciate the forumites' help, it seems as if in certain corner of the forum there is an underlying culture of gatekeeping by the old guards, dismissing new players who play new games with simpler rules, or playing it wrong because they don't use all the rules. At the same time, they complain that the player pool is too small. I think that it would be a missed opportunity to ignore these new breed of players, as they might provide the evolutionary change needed to fit the hobby into the culture. In my opinion, it has the possibility of creating a distinctly Chinese tabletop RPG experience that no other countries can provide, instead of creating another lame ripoff. But of course, I understand that they can play the game in whichever way they want. The approval of the old guard is encouraging, but at the same time, it is not necessarily crucial to the success of the hobby. As Rodrigo from Spain have told me, the Spanish forumites were dismissive of the Spanish translation of 5th edition D&D. But at the end of the day, it still sold out because it is a great product and the silent majority wanted it. In my opinion, 5th edition D&D has the possibility to become successful in China, but it would require a lot of work to make it a success. The question is whether Wizards of the Coast is willing to take this risk. Otherwise, if Chaosium were to pounce on this opportunity and all the stars align for them, they will be the ones who define the tabletop industry for a country of 1.3 billion souls for generations to come. Just to let you know, I for one welcome the rule of our elder god overlords. Alright, that's it for the video. I will be back with new Don't Stop Thinking contents in the coming week, so stay tuned for that. CJ, over and out.